Welcome to the Point of Convergence podcast. I am your host, Grant Lira. Get ready to sit down, tune in, and implement. Remember, the knowledge you learn here and anywhere else in your life is only worth something to you if you use it. So get implementing after this episode and enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of Point of Convergence. Today we are joined by Michael J. Niner of Blue Raven. Michael, how's everything going today?
It's actually doing pretty well. Thank you very much.
Outstanding, brother. Outstanding. Let's jump right into things here, man, because I know our listeners are pretty curious about your story, you know, how you got into this. So I'm gonna let you take the floor. Give us the details.
All right. So first disclaimer, nothing I say here has anything to do with any public office that I hold whatsoever. And I'll detail that later on. This is purely private, personal, and, just professional in the private sector opinion. So I actually started, getting into the field, actually started off 2006, 2007. I wanted a career change, and I got all my certifications, and actually I lucked out by getting employed by former Navy SEAL Master Chief Stephen Collins. It was a Black Ice Security Services based out of Sterling, I think still. And he took me under his wing, and it's been one hell of a ride because I initially got into the security work, not just a career change, but also college. I started going to college, and retail doesn't cover it. Broke if you do, broke if you don't. So I decided to do that just to kind of pay bills. I was going to go into law enforcement, get your criminal justice degree, that sort of thing. But I've had so much fun over the years that I didn't even apply to a police department. It's gone, I never thought where I the stuff I'd be doing, where I'd be. It's just, it's been phenomenal. So I started off, just doing construction sites, worked way up. Within 4 months, I was a site supervisor at a community policing based contract in Centerville, Virginia. And we kind of we don't replace the police, but we're the dominant force because we actually have arrest authority in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're the arresting officer. So we had this there's this HOA where there's 3,000 residents. I was with another officer, is a good guy, Mike Mance, who's a former, I think, Loudoun County Sheriff's Deputy in the Marine Corps. So he was my direct guy overhead. And, we did it all. We did work with the gang task force, set team is what they called in Fairfax County. Deal with everything, pretty much everything. We've even, helped them, what was it, marshals who help them serve a warrant? But yeah, it's pretty. When we're on the private property, we actually have a good amount of authority. That's what the interesting thing about it. So
that is interesting.
Yeah, it was but that's kind of like my start, the first year there, and I started getting went to college in Kentucky. Went to Eastern Kentucky University. I transferred from Nova, the community college, from Administration and Justice to Eastern Kentucky University, and came back. Did work here and there, but that was during the recession, so I kind of dipped out of college. It's it's getting money's getting tight, so I moved back up here, started up again, except another place in Loudoun, and then I got into executive protection shortly after I got back, and that's so much fun. It was just I don't want to do anything else. I worked for, I can't really say who, but dignitaries of countries that, were technically at war still, but recently, let's put it that way. Fortune 5 or Fortune 100 CEOs, domestic violence victims, stuff like that. Witness protection, done some of that as well. So there's a very broad spectrum of what we do especially in the DC metro area, because we'll even augment the DoD and State Department for when, let's say the Saudis. Everyone knows the Saudis. Big family guy had 500 wives or some crazy stuff like that. All the kids are princes and princesses. but this special close protection training is very specific. It's not law enforcement, it's not military, it's not security officer work. So it's its own field. And Virginia, DC was only one of like 2 or 3 states that actually has a specific designation for executive protection. So what we do is they like to hire us to be part of augment their, they have a guy in charge, an AIC agent in charge, to take lead on it, and then we'll augment their protective security details in the around the DC metro area.
So that's kind of cool. And it's interesting that you can work with that many like different entities and people who are, higher up in that, like, I guess, hierarchical like ladder, people who are extremely successful. How do you go about meeting those people? What does that, sales cycle look like? How do you find those jobs?
Well, one thing I learned is that I don't find them, they find me. Cold calling had never worked. So I had to find a good website, search engine optimized. Lady did my initial website, did a great job. I got more calls in a month than I did like a prior year than when I actually put it together, So you actually have to get a good website. And that's the biggest single mistake people, they say they nod their head, they don't do it. They'll get a cheap website, what do you call it? It's like a pamphlet or brochure. I think it's called a brochure website. So you need something out there that is that, so, and you also want to establish your brand. What kind of message are you, doing? What's the market? And that's a big one too, because there's these things called markets within the market. And I like to compare it to like burgers, right? You have McDonald's, it's cheap, it's quick, you know what the risks are when you eat it, but then if you want better quality, you're gonna have to pay more, you have to wait longer, go to Five Guys, so that's where the Five Guys of security work in DC metro areas like to say. But like I said, we're more expensive, but it's a brand, so you have to, and people don't go to Securitas or even Allied for the kind of work that we do. So that's the interesting thing about it.
Yeah,
is that we have a niche market and they find us.
And it's funny too. I'm happy you said something about like brand, because that's so true. At the end of the day, like no matter what you do, no matter what you serve, no matter what product, service, whatever, it's a commodity, right? People can do it themselves. They pay for you because of your brand. They pay for you because of who you are. So if you don't have that set up strategically in an intelligent way, people aren't going to come to you, right? You're going to have to do the cold calling. You're going to have to do that other kind of outreach stuff. But once you have that brand locked down and you can kind of outwardly put what your views are, why you do what you do, why you're better than, everybody else, and what you guys stand for. I mean, I'll ask you how much better did it get after you guys started doing that? Was it noticeable?
Well, sorry, this was a gift from an employee. So that's awesome. It's that good. They love them. So I love them too. Outside, so we are a registered trademark. That's for one that is beyond, and just like Coca-Cola, you pop open that can, you want to know what you're getting. You're not popping on things like, well, what's this going to be like today, So that's what it's really all about, establishing a brand and help keeping that. But also part of the tough part is, you still got to be flexible, but at the same time maintain some of that integrity, and that's where it gets really tricky, and that's where almost like you go from the science to the art, and that where you're gonna I wouldn't say compromise, but give leeway to accomplish it, not to get the sale per se, but still accomplish that objective, still maintain your image, your trademark, and what you're trying to represent without going too far outside that little circle of what you want to accomplish. And, just skimming the lines, what do so I don't mean that in the sense that, poor quality, but more, sometimes there's a bit too, there's a lot of that too much customer service oriented, and sometimes there's not enough. So, some people, they just want to stand there and, they want to do their job. They don't want to be holding the bags of the, the principal or their soda can or whatever, drink or whatever, while they sign an autograph. But something like simple like that. But if, they don't want to do that. But at the same time, there's people, the ones that just, they're overly concerned with the customer service, and that takes away from their actual job function. So
for
finding
sure.
that little balance is really it's really key.
And it's cool too, because going on your website, like the first thing you guys will see once you go on there is this really cool, like it's a video, right? It's the very first thing you see. It's video. It catches your eye, not necessarily any information being transmitted there, but it's something to like set yourself apart. And I like what you said earlier about like the templated websites or the brochure websites. Like those websites can serve a purpose and they'll get the point across, but really setting yourself apart differently and having yourself stand out really puts that edge on there, because everyone else is doing the opposite thing. And then second thing I'll show you as well, and I think, Michael, you might enjoy this for those listeners who can't necessarily hear, or can't see. Here we have a box of Fruit Loops, and then here we have a box of Far Out Fruities. Okay. Yeah. You look at the bowls, they're essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Which one sells more?
I mean, you got the big red box, you got a character popping, smiling, and what do you got on the other side? You got this little, it's bland.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that an astronaut?
I think it is. Yeah.
They didn't even give him an elbow. Sorry, there's not much effort. Effort into that one.
Toucan Sam's got all of his fingers. He's got he might only have 4 fingers, but they gave him detail. Regardless, the reason I wanted to bring that up is because you look at the bowls, they're the same things. Fruit Loops is a commodity, just like everything else. The reason you buy Fruit Loops is because of their brand, right? They've done work to make you know their brand. You know Toucan Sam, you know the brand of Fruit Loops. You're not going to buy Far Out Fruities. Maybe some people are, but in general, look at the sales numbers of each, and that'll speak for itself. But something I wanted to,
and it's unique. I mean, it's like I said, it's not a parrot. It's everyone has like, and this is for an example. This is why, like, you look on my page, I don't have this shield. I don't have a lot of the guys, the security guns, and you look at all these other companies. There's a very similar theme of premier company, tailoring to your need, all that, and then the pictures are, the same. I did not want to have, we're first and foremost an executive protection company, but I did not want to give the impression that we're this, pretentious only guys, because then you're losing out on a lot of other business and a lot of other services that are actually really needed. We'll get into that later, which is interesting as well. But to have something that has more of I want to say law office corporate profile, that's why you have the bird, and then you have this little logo. You don't have a shield. You don't have this, guns going like this, and a skull or tactical this, and whatever. You don't. So I didn't want that image. I wanted a cleaner image that could be used, more neutral across the board, that separates us from that. And that goes for, let's say, the uniforms as well. We don't do I'm wearing a white shirt, but it's polo. I'm the boss. So, but we don't do the white button-down shirts or black ties. We have a dark green, forest green shirt. Our uniforms are based off of research that shows people, we're visual creatures. We based opinions off of what people wear and what we look like. So, but there has been research on law enforcement, if they wear, let's say, a they did one where they were black on black, red patches, and then the more use of force complaints, and there's khaki shirts or tan shirts, then there's like a brown or burgundy pants, and they compared those two. So the idea was the uniform to elicit a certain type of response, professional, authoritative, but not aggressive in that sense. Not the mall cop, white shirt, black tie sort of thing, but designed to, elicit. So we have the khaki pants, and where initially we had the badge and the belt next to the gun. We've kind of transitioned into a more uniform law enforcement. We do have a dark green shirt, your top, dark green bottom, but again, it's a green. It's not the black. It's not the blue. It's so. That marketing, that image that stands out from everyone else, that it's something simple as, just a simple color,
And that's so true. Also, like having that pattern interrupt within whatever industry you're in is huge. For example, one of my good friends, Jonah Cantor, of Cantor Construction. He owns an interior remodeling company, right? So the first time I met him, I was doing research on him, and you can think of whatever logos you want for like interior design companies. And it's funny that we're talking about this because I'm going to show you his logo in a second. But the first time I saw his logo, I was confused a little bit, but in a good way. I was like, what is this, like am I on the right page? Like, this is kind of interesting. But I got his logo on my water bottle here. I don't know if you can see it. It's got
back a little bit. It's a little bit blurry.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
He's got it's a beard. It's a skull. It looks like it'd be security or something, it looks like hardcore, but he's in the interior remodeling space. So that just like stood out to me. I need to talk to this guy.
Is he designing the interiors of military barracks or
you think?
Was it G.I. Joe the Pit?
But with him, he's an interesting case, right? Because he's been on HGTV, he's done all this other cool stuff, but he's like got this brand and himself that's like something you don't typically expect to see online. And that pattern interrupt, like, it gets you thinking, it gets you wanting to look.
That's more good. I would think you would think it'd be like, why is this logo there on interior design? It looks like a patch, it'd be belong on, but. Yeah, I can kind of see it. It's not my field, but I can. If it stands out and it was working for him, he did it. It. So,
like, that's a logo I'd expect to see in your field. That's why I thought it was funny.
Exactly, and there's a lot of them. Yeah.
But so that's interesting. And Michael, going back a little ways here. So I want to talk a little bit about your, growing up, kind of your childhood. I understand you did sports, you did football, you did wrestling. That really translate over to business well. What was your like takeaways from that moving forward in your professional and personal life?
So my childhood upbringing wasn't that great. It wasn't the most horrible thing ever, but it wasn't great. So there was some abusive upbringing. I won't go into detail on that. So I didn't have many friends. I kind of got into, I like the animals and everything. Those were my friends. You have that stuff. You lash out. You kind of withdraw. People don't want to be around you and so on. So I actually ended up having my own dog walking service, and I, had collected like a football and baseball cards. You kind of sold those things a little bit here and there. So that's where the real business, and that was actually when I was about 12. So I think that had a lot to do with me. How do I monetize it? Because I see people walking the dogs and everything. Well, how do I do that? Monetize what I liked. And that's what I did. So for about 2 years, because it was from about 12 when I started. Then I dissolved the company. It was an LLC to play football at a high school. So the business aspect of it came in pretty young. It literally. So it was nothing sophisticated. I had about 3 friends working for me. It was. Mostly me after school stuff. They go on vacation. I'm still in the neighborhood. So it was. There's no website. There's no apps. It was just walk. It was not. Here's the funny thing about it. We just didn't take care of dogs. Cats, birds, rats, hamsters, you name it. Pretty much everything. So finding a dog sitter and a cat sitter. Cats kind of take care of themselves, but is easy. Birds. But finding someone. Birds, they're very needy creatures.
I know
they really are. Yeah. They just they're very needy. So that's one big example. Finding someone to set the bird that the bird likes, because those birds got attitudes or something fierce. So if they don't like you, they'll let you know. So
one of my cousins has birds, and I don't think I could ever own a bird because they are so temperamental and finicky. But like, that's interesting, right? You identified there was a need for that. There's a weird niche for like people who need to watch birds. You have to be good with birds, which are extremely care intensive. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that's.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, there's some of the, especially when they used to the cockatoos and whatnot. They're like small children, so you got to spend a couple hours a day playing with them. Again, they have to you have to know their habits and do's and don'ts. So. Sometimes they grab onto you, and it's kind of sad because they grab onto you, their little thing, then they won't let go. So, so you actually find, there's relationships you form with some of these animals that are pretty intelligent.
For people who don't know, this is just an interesting fact about birds. I never knew this until I started talking to people who own birds. They can live like 50 plus years.
Oh yeah, they'll live up sometimes up to 100. Yeah, you get some of those. What's the African parrot? I can't remember the ones. It looks like not the toucan, but almost. But they're a good while. So
That blew my mind. I had
they
no
last
idea.
longer than most relationships.
Yeah.
So, most marriages. So yeah, so it's an investment, to say the least. Yeah. But yeah, they're them, and then the pet rats always like playing with them because they're smart as dogs. They a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know this is that people think like, oh, it's a small animal, the brain's small. No, it's otherwise elephants and whales will be smarter than we are, but it has to do with I can't remember part of the brain. But they're just really intelligent. So in a lot of there's some third world countries that they use a breed of rat. It's called the giant Gambian pouch rat to sniff out bombs. Because and here's why they do that, not canines, because they actually tried to use canines. We actually, our U.S. government, we gave them a bunch of dogs. We went over there, we trained them, we gave them all their kibble. And so what happened was that they, the police trainers that belongs to that whatever country they were, took the dog kibble, fed it to their family because it's more nutritious than what they could give their own kids. And give seeds and whatnot to this grains to this dogs, and dogs were all emaciated and dying. So what they found was that these giant Gambian pouch rats lived to be about 9-10 years old. They're big. They're bigger than most cats. They train them because most rats, like your fancy rat, will have a lifespan about 3 years, but this is much bigger, and they eat anything. They'll eat bananas, whatever. They're not complaining. So they're more manageable. So they use the rats to sniff out bombs and other stuff. They're just every bit as effective. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So you got into that as a young age. You were doing that before high school. So that's is it safe to say that's where your entrepreneurial spirit started with that business?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
And then obviously from there, dissolved the business. You went into sports, and now moving forward from sports, into now. So it's cool because you left, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you left high school already owning a small business, already, understanding the team aspects of sports and how important teamwork is. Like, so to me, it seems pretty natural that you would then go in and create your own business.
So there was, got out of the household, and it's one of those things where I did retail. I didn't have much education, but I was in you call it a depressive state, and it was just kind of getting also finding myself, there's a process there. So I did retail for 4 or 5 years or something like that. And it's kind of weird. You would think that I'd actually go into that. I actually didn't. So I actually really fell back. And it's just kind of felt like a zombie wandering the earth, and they just, I don't know. It just it's kind of funny. So I was working at Party City. I mean, the party store sells, you probably heard of it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I was coming across the street, and a couple of Mormons stopped me. And they talked to me, and I actually ended up joining the Mormon church. And that, taking that leap and having some positive influences in me, in that aspect, also helped me jump back into, I guess, that thing I had before. So that's where it kind of started. So I noticed this interesting little like this, so I'm down about, it just started going up and up and up, so I had a lot more positive and support through the Mormon church. And that just kind of really helped me out a lot, that at least, spiritually and, intellectually, so to get back on that track that I actually had that young drive before. I had bills to pay and all this other stuff now as an adult. So it was just a nice transition there, and it kind of added up there. And that's within, I was baptized September 2006. That's around the time, within 6 months, I had my security registration. I know that. I think it was April 27, 2007, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Interesting. So really taking a step back and kind of like looking at where you were at, like finding your morals again, finding like what truly drives you, and not as much, let's say, education, but more of that internal like talk, that internal mindset, and really like finding your true passion again and what you're doing is really what helped you out of that zombie-like state.
Yeah, I felt like because I put a lot of things internally, and because I didn't have the high school football team anymore. I had a back surgery and everything, a scoliosis. So I did, I was still able to do some football and everything, but So a lot of things, didn't turn out that way. But it helped me put me back on track. And it was like more like, you walk around, you're covered in mud, just take a nice refreshing shower. And that really helped me out, and it helped get me back. And, like I said, on that track to where I can, not feeling so mucky, is the best way to explain it. That so I can focus on or pay attention better to this particular thing that I want, and then versus, trying to, I don't want to maybe just mope around. I guess you'd call it mope around, but kind of, a little bit of self-pity, but
yeah,
that sort of thing.
So that's cool. And I understand that part now, but I also understand that you attended the NVCC administration of justice program. Mm-hmm. You transferred over to Eastern Kentucky University. Mm-hmm. So I want to hit on that now too, because we have we have the internal stuff, right? We have the mindset stuff, which is extremely important. That's like the foundation of your skyscraper.
Right.
Obviously the education. And this is more of what I wanted to talk about, because within the entrepreneurial space, in a lot of fields, people don't necessarily need, a college degree. They don't necessarily need a ton of education. What's best for them is going out and doing it. Now, I want to get your take on, because I see you graduated with honors, top of your class, and I want to hear your take on a lot of that stuff and how that education helped you and what that actually did for you moving forward.
Right. So I graduated with honors from Executive Security International, which is a certification program, not the community college. I actually don't have a college degree. So so I have these little bits and pieces all over the place of education wise, so I transferred. No, there's great education for what I needed, especially like in the private security field, because they've these little courses, they didn't teach much, and doing that criminal law, it's much more in depth. So it was really good to have these individual courses for to do my job better. The licenses and certifications were essential, because I mean, as an employer, I get people all the time that have the degree, but they don't have any training, they don't have any licensing, they don't have any experience, they have nothing. They come out and it's like. There's when you're looking for someone, someone's applying for a position that's, 20% book smarts, 80% street smarts, and they've got 80%, book smarts and 20% street smarts. It doesn't work out too well. And I think education absolutely tends to be overrated, I should say the degrees themselves are overrated. And the programs itself. So individual courses themselves, I think are very crucial to our development. Is you get these you look at 128 degree or 28 credit degree program. Half of that stuff is fluff. Breadth of knowledge, okay, a little bit nice there, but then you got this and this and this. Okay, college math and English is like, well, I got through high school and I'm not going to. It's kind of pointless. So. I don't have even though I transferred to a university, I didn't follow through with that. It was I did learn a lot of stuff, but I like to say something kind of pisses people off. So this is going back to my childhood. They said I was some guy said at one point that I had PDD-NOS, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, a mild form of autism. So I bring that up in conversation sometimes, and they'd say I'm highly functioning. And this is what I say to them: this is what I've done. I'm too smart to have to go to college to be successful. They don't like that very much. So exactly. Your success. I mean, with the exception of some, fields, maybe medical doctor,
right, the hard sciences, stuff like that.
Yeah, the hard, that's understandable, but and a lot of things, yeah.
That's interesting because you've attended these schoolings, you've seen some of that stuff, you have like bits and pieces of what's important to you and what you needed to develop. But where did you really within your professional field now? Where did you learn the most that you think directly helped you, grow your business to where it is today? What aspect, what classes, what experience, right? Not even relating to school. And I know it's probably hard. You can.
Well, no, actually, my most experiences actually had to do with me learning what I can do with the business stuff in the security and executive protection field. Had more. I got more from back in the days of walking dogs, because you're dealing with individuals and their needs and understanding those that little nuances, of a, because this, you go into the house, they have two dogs, they have, this dog has one person, this dog personality, and dealing with that client, and then this person has one dog and one cat, so you're dealing with different situations. I mean, there's the employee aspect of it as well, but having understanding that this dog needs to get walked, this dog, these are certain needs met, and how are you going to do that? So tailoring that to accomplish that objective, because there's dogs that actually have had surgeries, they have other issues that you got to deal with. One dog was this dog was high maintenance. She would only eat her food if you poured 2 ounces of warm water into it and mixed it around, and she wouldn't eat it. She wouldn't eat it if it was 1 ounce, or if it was 3 ounces and it was cold, she wouldn't eat it. So this dog was, so that had the business aspect had a lot to do with that. What I did learn from the security field when I was operating the business aspect of it, I looked at 2 different things: the employees and the employers. So the employers, a lot of them are just doing shady stuff, 1099, right? Everyone's an independent contractor because they don't want to pay all that stuff. So there's one aspect of it. And 2 is employee morale, So kind of adopted that mentality of like it says on the website, Richard Branson, treat them well. And I did learn something very interesting. This is call it a trade secret. This is for you. So there's when you have a client, there's a certain amount of pliability you have with them, and all these companies, they use that pliability to catch all the crap, dumb shit that their low bid, minimally qualified security agents do. So there's a certain amount of elasticity, as they call it, So they try to pull that in that direction. I pull it in the other direction and try to pull them and say, hey, what about this? Let's try this. I push back on clients. Hey, let's do this. Instead of just doing that, yeah, yes, sir, no, ma'am, yes, sir, we can do that, no problem. And then, well, no, they can't do that, and there's a problem. So I educate them and use that pliability, the elasticity towards the objective, and beneficial towards my staff, myself, and them. So it's a symbiotic relationship that needs to take place to have a much more healthier environment for this, whatever that site is, whether it's home association, apartment complex, office, whatever, and then the services in there, and that they have to have faith in your ability to trust you to do the job, and that's where that elasticity comes in. You got to find that. Instead of having this rigid, this is what they want, this, and this. Okay, these 3 things. You got to do these 3 things, and all these 3 things. Okay. No, see if you can swap this thing out for something else, and just you got to play with that as elasticity and see what what you can accomplish, and you'll see what I mean. Not in sales wise per se, but what I'm talking about, like in service and trying to accomplish the objective.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right, and I mean that's so true, and even like. Not as much in the sales side of things, but in like the problem solving world too, right? One of the things that helps out so much is when you get creative with different solutions. So like, for example, I'll use sales because that's what I know. I'll use sales because I know that's what a lot of our listeners have. But like you have an offer and it has X, Y, and Z in it. And that's what your offer is. It's X, Y, Z for X amount of dollars. Okay. If it's not a great fit for that person, you can have a XYZ or XYB, right? So like switching that stuff out because you have that control over it to make it more appealing to that person, and realizing that, hey, I can definitely pitch this to them, or I can definitely fulfill their needs through this, but I think subbing this out for something else would fit them better, would help them more. And that way you're not going through all these different offers. It's once you can get good at becoming creative with your problem solving and addressing your clients' needs, addressing what they truly need to be done, that's when you experience like the biggest amount of growth through closing, through client satisfaction, whatever the case is. But having that kind of unique, tailored approach to each person, not so much that you're doing a ton of work for it, but just enough to where, hey, I know that this person needs this and they can benefit from this, and they don't need this as much. Let's do this for them. Like that is such a a golden nugget within business. It's mind blowing.
Here's a little secret. Tell them a secret. So there's the little things that you tell them to make the sale industry standard. And let me be more specific. So a lot of clients, they want those marked patrol vehicles to go around, amber lights, deter the bad guys. That doesn't work. But you can actually download the website or the study from my website. It's Criminal Justice or Criminology 101, Kansas City Preventive Patrol Experiment. These cop cars go around. There's no really effect on deterrence. That's the police, so they're not afraid of them. They're afraid of these little amber lights. It's not really effective. There's this misconceptions that it is an effective that's effective. It's sold not only in the security aspect of it, but even the police departments. They literally have in Alexandria where businesses will pay the department $100 a day to park their vehicle on site. And it's like, you're what? And not just a patrol car. They got these little. They got 3-wheeled scooter things. It's like in front of the CVS in Old Town. It's like. Okay, it's a nice little statue there, or like piece of art, but it's not affecting me. So what I did was hey, your biggest asset on site is the individual officer. Okay, so let's do this. Use his patrol vehicle, his own personal vehicle. Okay, he's on site. And that way you take the money, you have the bill rate for the individual, and then you have an initial rate for, let's say, the patrol unit itself, the patrol cars. So you take that cost there and put it there onto the officer's bill rate, and then you can afford a better quality individual. So that's something as simple as that. But it's like I said, it's there's an industry standard or like it's selling, but it's false, or it's either false or it's overinflated beyond really any sort of rationale. And to educating that client, tell them something they don't know is kind of opens them up a bit. That way they're more receptive to whatever you have to.
And how cool is that too, that there's all these across multiple industries? Like, that's a fantastic example for yours. But like for other industries, there's these stone cold truths, right? That people think are real, that people think work, whatever the case is. But a lot of the times, digging into that, doing the research, whatever the case is, you might see that there's better ways to do it. There's different ways to do it. There's stuff that hasn't been explored more to get the same result. And having that conversation, that's not necessarily like a sales conversation. It's like a teaching experience, right? Sitting next to that person as opposed to across from, explaining why this idea might be better for them than the other idea that they've been doing forever. That's it. That's what it's all about. And like, that's a really interesting example too. And I like your solution to that.
Yeah. And it's not for all clients. Some people, they literally want to be sold. And I literally, there's a phrase I tell my guys, like, if you ever start your own business and this person says this to you, walk out, don't even submit a proposal. They say, what are you going to do for us? Okay. I was okay. Well, I'm going to offer you Navy SEALs for Boy Scout prices and throw in a completely and utterly free patrol unit. That's what I'm going to do. So yeah. So you have, just like I say, markets within the market. So you have to figure out what market you're in, using those cheap stuff, middle of the road, more high end, and then use those techniques for that particular market and then mold that around it. You can't really, you're not going to be able to successfully put one over to the other. Maybe cheap end to a little middle of the road or this here or there, but you're not going to be able to merge the high end stuff with the low end stuff. It's too far off.
Yeah. And so to clarify on that point though, so what are you going to do for us? You're saying you'll never take, or within reason, never take a person like that because they don't have a true need, or they're just kind of shopping around. Explain that a little more.
So it's they want to be sold. That's what they want. They want me to tell them and butter them up and throw them a bunch of freebies. And this is not just, I've learned this from many times sitting in those meeting rooms with their staff. And they call back every single year. I've actually got a 2 strikes you're out rule. Is like, if you call me like more than twice and you still is like, I'm just going to blacklist you because I don't have the time or patience to deal with that. Because I get called every single year, and there's a few of them. They send emails out and they call and say, "Hey, can we do this?" And it's like I actually started telling them, stop calling us, because they don't know what they want. And you actually look at the individual companies that the actual companies they end up selecting what they select? They select a low bidder. That's not that so you can kind of tell the what their mindset is based off of the providers that they do choose, and that was an example.
So
yeah,
looking at them like actually having a need, knowing that you're the right person versus somebody who's kicking the tires. They want to go through the song and dance of, seeing what you can provide to
exactly.
them.
They want that the song and dance. They want you to perform. They want you to. There's a sense of entitlement amongst a lot of people these days, and they see that and they want that. Like I said, if they could get your services for free and then complain about the quality, just complain about they're terrible, they'll do that versus actually pay a buck or two more per hour and get something better. They'll do that just fine. Also, that said, there is a difference between what they know happened and what has actually occurred, because you're dealing with 90% of the nonsense that the guys falling asleep on site, not showing, etc. The clients don't know about. So if something is so bad that they know about it, there's all this other stuff that they haven't heard about that we're obviously not informing them on. So
yeah. And then Michael, I want to start wrapping things up here. The last thing I want to talk about, and this is really cool. Again, pattern interrupts, right? On your website, I'm doing my research.
Oh, sure.
I go down to, what tab was it under? I believe it was under, under what we do. I go scroll down there, see a literature tab. I've never seen that on a site before. You have your recommended reads. You have a bunch of books on here. So I'm curious now to ask you this question. How important is knowledge and reading, stuff like that, within your line of work?
Very. We're intelligence based. You can't simply put a guy there that doesn't know what he's doing. And the reactionary problem we're seeing is that either people don't know how to react, or we're just relying on a reaction. We're relying on law enforcement to react to what's called the right. There's the bang, there's right of bang, there's left. You're probably familiar with the term. We want to do primarily left of bang, stop it from happening in the first place, and understand these concepts. This knowledge, there's a lot of free knowledge out there. People a lot of times choose not to do it because they don't have to. It's not state mandated. My academy's actually done something kind of interesting with that, where we're providing cheaper online in-service training. It's like half the price, but you have to score higher to pass. So instead of 70, you go to 80%. There's a little bit more, training as well. And there's a client education aspect of it as well, that they need to, they need to be familiar with what they're getting. Because I think out of the 6 years we've been in business, I've only been asked for my license first by the client, or prospective client, at least 2, maybe 3 times. Most don't even know it's regulated. A lot of states don't even regulate at all. So they need to know what they're getting.
And isn't that kind of interesting too? Because like along the lines of social proof, like seeing your credentials, your certificates, like what work have you done before? I think a lot of that all comes down to trust, right? Because if that person trusts you and they believe that what you're doing is good, they're not going to ask you that. If they ask you that, you already lost the trust somewhere along the way, most times. And it's interesting to kind of dissect that, because like, obviously I'll put myself in this situation, right? When we first started a business and we got asked for that stuff, we didn't have any clients. So, not really much you can do there. But now, I know what we do works, and what you do works. So when you get asked that, it's not truly like they necessarily want to see. It's that something throughout your conversation hasn't connected with them, or something seems odd and they're not trusting you. So it's like finding out how to build that trust effectively. And it's different from person to person, because like what might work with somebody else, you're going to completely lose somebody else on. So really kind of like feeling out that person, seeing what they truly need to see to be able to feel comfortable enough to make that decision to move forward with you. Like, I like that you said that. That's super true.
For the security industry, I would say that there is almost a blind trust. A lot of people cause. They assume that person in the company is licensed. They assume the individual has a registration. And so many times that's not the case at all. So what I found to be very effective is not just sit there and throw, oh, I promise this, oh, we're this, oh, we're highly trained, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. Show them how are you trained? Show them your individual registration card. It is their right in Virginia. If you hire me, my agent must show you our individual registration card. That is DCJS regulation. They have to. I think it's like class 1 misdemeanor if they don't. So I don't really do anything about it, but it's just one of those things that when you provide the documentation, so you say, oh, we're this. No, show it to them. Nobody does that. They barely send the licenses. They don't show it to them unless you're specifically asked, and that's usually the state RFPs, in the big old packets. But the private ones, they seldom will they even ask for it. And if you provide that, hey, this is what I'm saying, and here's the proof. I'm living wage certified. Here's our certificate. Here's our DCJS license with all our stuff. Here's insurance. Throw it to them firsthand. That way, it's like it's you're showing your proof, your credentials. You're
absolutely And like staying with the topic of literature too, though. Mm-hmm. Like show, don't tell, right? Show people that stuff. People don't want to hear about it; they want to actually see it. So, like for example, like one of the things we started doing is we just started showing people, like, hey, you can listen, say how great I am, blah blah blah, but just Google my name, right. See what comes up. Like that kind of stuff, it's like showing that person, giving them that card, letting them do their own research, encouraging research, like that stuff is huge. And Michael, let's wrap it up here.
Oh, of course,
you go about your day. Where can we get in contact with you? Where can we learn more?
We're located based out of Northern Virginia, Alexandria. Our phone number is 703-722-8677. Our website is blueravenintelligence.com. We also have a new academy. It's brcja.com.
There we go. Well, awesome. Really, really good conversation today, Michael. Appreciate you for hopping on. All right, take care.